transactions that will happen with your Zoho Books. Before that, am I audible? Can anybody hear me and see me? Can I continue? Could you just put it on chat so that I can start with it? Okay, that's a lot of yeses. So I think I can go ahead. Yep. Okay. Just a minute, please. Okay, so everyday transactions is where we'll be starting. So we'll start with expenses versus bills, what the difference is, and then we'll go ahead with the creation of expenses, and then continue with the entire sales cycle with the purchase cycle, how it's intertwined and how you can use it for your accounting, and then how the payments and refunds will also be handled in Zoho Books, how it can be recorded, and followed by recurring transactions, recurring profiles, which will aid you. It's an additional feature that we have, and setting reminders for these transactions that you create. So we can let's go ahead and start with this. To start, let me share my screen. Just a second, please. Yes, I hope you can see my screen now. Yep. So yes, so this is your dashboard. As soon as you create your once you set up your organization, everything will be like this. So for starters, let's go to purchases. So that's where you will have your expenses and bills. So the basic difference between your expense and bills is that expense is something that happens, it's something that incurs, right? So for instance, your rent is an expense that incurs immediately, wherein a bill is something that you pay for later. So when cash is incurred immediately, it's an expense. When you pay the bill a little later, then it will come under bills. So usually you use expenses for your miscellaneous expenses within the office and other expenses related to a customer and all of that. Wherein a bill is when you purchase goods or purchase services and all of that, where you record it with a vendor so that you can keep track of your accounts payable. So we'll start it off with expenses. So under the purchases module, you'll have the expense tab. So that's where you start with creating it. So the date, that is a mandatory field. So the date on which the expense was incurred. You can put a previous date as well. That's not going to be a problem. And you have employees. So the users that you've added, you can add them as employees here just so that you can track with whom you've made this expense, who has incurred this expense. This will come in handy when you have a Zoho expense integration with Zoho Books. So that will give you a better. This will be properly integrated with this employee option, followed by the expense account. So let's say this expense is basically for your property rent. So you can add the rent expense account. So if there are any further accounts that you want to add, which is not already in your chart of accounts, you can click on this new account option here directly in the expense page and go ahead and create it. So you can create it like that and go ahead and create it. All right. Another option is itemizing an expense. So let's say you swipe your card for multiple expenses. In that case, you have the option to itemize it, where you can choose multiple accounts. So let's say you swipe the card, your account for both your expense as well as the fuel expense. So you can enter it here. Okay. So this will be in your base currency. If you want it to be in a different currency, in a different account that you had created, then you can change your currency here as well, or you can just maintain it with your base currency. Sorry. Okay. And the additional fields will be your vendor. If you want to associate any of the vendors that you've created, you can associate them here so that you can track it under their contacts, their vendor portal. Or if not, you don't have to do it. It's not a mandatory field. The next option is associating a customer. So you can associate the customer and mark this as billable. So if you mark it as billable, then you can add this to the invoices that you create for this particular customer. So you can do that. And after that, you also have the option to associate projects. So you can create the expense directly within the project that we'll be talking about in a while, or you can associate the project under that particular customer, if there's any customer that you have with the project. And then you can click on save. If you have any receipts, you can also add the attachment over here. You could have had it in your documents, or you can have it from your desktop, whichever is easy for you. You can just click on this. So I have a receipt over here, so I can just click on that and click on attach receipt. So this is one way that we can go ahead and create the expense. So I'll just click on save. Oh, the pay through account, if it's a bank or cash account, you will have to add the account here. Okay, and save. So your expense will be created. Once the expense is created, it will show here as split because please do just a minute, just a second, please. Please give me a minute. Sorry about that. Yes, let me continue. So looks like I'm going a little too fast over here. Let me show that down. Okay. All right. So it will be split, and you'll be able to see the expenses incurred within this split expense. You also have the option to view the journal. So over here, you can see what are the accounts involved in this particular transaction, and you can see the bank and everything. This will give you like a manual journal based off this particular transaction. So this is the basis of creating an expense. We have additional features, which is one other thing is recording a mileage. All right. So recording a mileage is basically under settings, preferences, and expenses. We have the option where you can set up a mileage expense, how it can be done. So you can set it per mile or kilometers, whichever is convenient for you. And you can set up the mileage rate per date. So let's say a lot of your employees do a lot of traveling on a particular date. If you set up the mileage rate over here, it will be easier for you to record the expense for that particular mileage. So that you can enter it over here. Additionally, you can also record vehicles just to keep track of what are the vehicles that is being used for your business travel purposes. All right. So over here, again, we'll come to expenses and record mileage. Over here, you can choose an employee if you need and choose the vehicle. It's not mandatory, but if you want to, you can go ahead and choose it. And you can either track the mileage by the expense by distance traveled or the odometer reading. You can enter the reading from where it started and where it had ended. All right, and it will automatically calculate as per the mileage that you had set up there. If you want to change that, you can always change it over here. We do have the option to change it here. Because of the fluctuation with the mileage, you can save it. All right, and the amount will get automatically populated with the calculations that are done here. And you can continue with the paid through account. So yes, it can be an employee reimbursement. And yes, you can go ahead again. If you need a vendor, like if you want to add a HP or Shell, you can go ahead and add it, or you can and you can also associate a customer here to like notify that this particular travel was done for this particular customer, just to keep track and keep notes. And you can click on save. All right. So once that is done, your mileage expense has been recorded. Another feature with regard to your expenses is bulk adding expenses. So let's say a lot of expenses were incurred on a day or like in a year, in a month. So you can just go ahead, click on the date, quickly choose what are the accounts that you need and the pay through account. And the vendor if you need, again, customer name, project. If you associate the customer name, you can associate the project as well. And if it is billable, you can choose it as billable as well. Also, we also have the option to clone it. So immediately the next one will get auto-populated. You can just, if you need, you can just change the date and the rate if that's something you need. And yes, so the basic details would get cloned and you can go ahead and save it. So this is an easier and faster way to create expenses. There's another way that you can upload expenses in your documents, and that can be auto-populated as expenses. So you can click on upload expenses and have a receipt which will get uploaded. Sorry about that. Okay, so that will get uploaded to your documents. The documents is right here. All right. So we also have this feature called auto scan. So currently, if you're in the if it's in a paid plan, we'll have it. Currently, I don't have it. The auto scan, what it will do is it will uh, pick up the vendor's name, the items or the expense accounts, which will be created in your, which will it has to pre-exist in your chart of accounts. All of that, as along with the price, will get picked up from the image that you upload, and it will create the expense for you. You just have to verify it and the expense will get automatically created. Rather than you sitting and typing everything out, this will just scan all of the details with the receipt that you import, that you upload, and that will get populated as an expense. So these are the ways that you can create an expense for your organization. All right. So let's now jump into the sales cycle and the purchase cycle. That basically that's the basis of how you can maintain your account. So for starters, you have to create your account, your customers. Venkat already spoke about that. Next, so let's say a business model where a customer wants to buy something from you in bulk in a wholesale amount. So you have to create an estimate for them. So first, you'll add an estimate for that customer. All right, and you'll have to choose the items. So let's say you want to sell them cables, and you also want to sell them a particular type of computer monitor. So then you set up a quantity as to how much you want to sell it, how many quantity you want to sell them. So let's say you are 100 pieces, and computer, it will be about, let's say, 30. Okay. So another thing is that tracking inventory matters over here. So you'll be able to see that this is the current status of the item that you've added. So the stock on hand is just 3, but you're going to promise 30. And the committed stock is something that if you have open sales orders, so that will be the committed, if you open sales orders, then it will be committed stock as will be the sales order quantity. And then the available for sale again will be the reduction of the sales orders and the stock on hand. So this is just, it will just give you a view of what the status of this item is. All right. So along with that, when you choose the customer itself, the taxes and everything will get populated over here. But if there's any change in that, you can still go ahead and do that. All right. You can change the tax if needed. Additionally, you'll also have the option to enter a discount if you want to give them a discount, or shipping charges if there's any. You can add all of this here, and you can save it and send. All right. You can also save it as draft and send it later. So once you click on this, you're done. So if your customer has a client portal access, they'll be able to go inside the client portal and click on accept. If they don't have client portal access, you'll just have direct communication with them, and you can come to your estimate over here and click on mark as accepted. If it's marked as declined, you can do that as well. But after that process, you won't be able to create any transactions from this estimate. All right. So you'll have to mark as accepted. So once it's accepted, you have multiple streams in which this can be done. So first, you can either create a retainer invoice. Retainer invoice is basically collecting advance for this particular sale. So that is the retainer invoice, or you can directly convert it into a sales order if you're not going to collect any down payment for this. Or you can also create an invoice, convert this estimate to an invoice directly. So this is completely up to you. For the sake of going through the entire process, we'll create a retainer invoice. All right. So the amount you can just, so the current estimate amount is $5,203. So in the retainer, let's say you want to get a down payment of $1,000. Okay, so you can just type it. And over here, you won't be able to select any items. You'll just have to type the description as to why you're getting and or how, whatever details you want to put, you can put that and get the amount for this, for the down payment. And if you want any customer notes, you can enter it here, terms and conditions. This is a pre-invoice that you give for the down payment. All right. And you can add it to whichever, send this to whoever you need to send it within that particular customer's profile. Save and send. All right, so again, this is recent. Okay, give me a minute, it's loading. Yes, so that being sent. So the next thing is they'll make the payment to you, right? So you can record the payment for this retainer invoice. So it has to be the full amount, or else you'll have to edit the retainer and then receive the amount. This cannot be edited while you're recording the payment. And the deposit too will be one of the bank accounts that you've integrated with Zoho Books, or it can also be a cash account. So depending on that, you can go ahead and add the transaction. The payment mode could be a bank transfer. And yes, if you have any files to upload, like a transcript from your customer or somebody, you can also do that. And you can send a thank you email that you can set up in your templates, which we'll see a little later. But if you need to send a thank you email for the payment, you can enable that too, and you can record the payment. All right. Sorry. Yeah. So the payment has been recorded. So now let's go back to the estimate. The retainer and everything is created. Now, if you see the item, if you go to the item, you don't have enough stock. We won't have enough stock. So at this point, just a minute. Yes. So your current stock on hand is 3, but you actually have to make a lot more. So in that case, first you'll put a sales order to your customer saying that, yes, we confirm that this will be the sales that we will have with you. And then from that, you'll have to create a purchase order. So we'll go to the estimate. All right. Click on this and convert to sales order. Over here, you have all the quantities and everything for the items. And if you need to add any more details to this, you can go ahead and add it. If you have any payment terms, any terms as such, you can go ahead and do that. And yes, you can save and send. Okay. Okay. Yes. So once it is confirmed, the sale is confirmed, you can create a purchase order because currently you don't have the necessary items to make the sale. So you'll have to make a purchase for that. All right. So you can choose the particular vendor. The items will get automatically populated. So this is the only item which has the inventory tracking. So the inventory asset and everything associated with the item will get automatically pulled in here. But if you need to change the quantity, let's say you promised 30, but you still like to purchase more than that, you can purchase 40 items. So that's completely up to you. You can create the purchase order and you can set up the purchase order number, which you have the option to auto populate that, setting up a prefix and the number that you want to start it with. And then a reference number. The reference number will get automatically pulled from the sales order that you're creating. And the date, again, you can set it up as you need. And yes, you can have a discount. You can request a vendor for a discount. And yes, you can go ahead and save and send it to your vendor. All right. Oh, just a minute. Okay, yeah, I'll just cancel it right now. We don't have a email address. So I can just mark it as issued, which means it's in the open status. All right. So once the purchase order is sent, And once you actually receive the purchase, once the purchase is complete, you can convert this purchase order into a bill. All right. So the bill number will be the bill number that your vendor has. So you can enter that bill number here. The order number will automatically be the purchase order associated with it. And the bill date as to when the purchase was complete, you can enter that as the bill date. And the due date will be when you are allowed to make a payment. So within which date. So after this due date, it will become an overdue. The bill will become in the overdue status. And yes, you can go ahead with yes. Another feature that we have for the bills is landed cost. So Venkat did speak about enabling this in the preferences. So landed cost is basically when you're importing items, there'll be shipment and everything that is added to the purchase. So in that case, this landed cost will be used so that you can choose the profitability. You can see the profitability for a particular purchase. So if you, let's say there is a shipment that is involved with this, and you can choose the account under which you want to do this. So currently I'll put it under something called uncategorized. And then the quantity can be this. And let's say the shipment charged about $40. Okay. You can just create this as landed cost, and this shipment will have to allocate it to that particular bill so that it gets properly calculated with the items based on the quantity or based on the amount. All right. So you can save, and over here you'll have the option save as open and apply landed cost. Okay. So this landed cost will be applicable to both the items in this particular bill. Okay. So once the bill is created, it will show you whether you want to allocate it based on quantity or based on value. All right. So you can choose that and save. Okay. So once it is in the open status, you'll be able to see it in the journal as to how all of the amount was calculated. The $40 that was the landed cost, and that's been credited as well. So this is something to see how the calculation with regard to the transaction, accounting calculations. So once this is done, so the next step is you'll receive the purchase. Once you've got it from your vendor, you'll have to record a payment. All right. So you can click on record payment. So there are three ways in which you can record the payment. Either you can manually record the payment. Click on this. The payment amount will be here. The paid through account, whichever bank, and the mode of payment, you can record it here. If not, for the US and Canadian edition, we have the option for pay via check. For the Australian and the global organizations, currently we don't have this option. It's available only for US and Canada. So you can click on pay via check. So it will take you to this record payment option, where you can choose the bank account through which the amount will be withdrawn, but it's paid via check. And you can click on save and print now. All right. So we are currently integrated with Dynamic Solutions. That's our check template provider. So over there, you can go ahead and purchase the leaflet. And after that, you can use this while printing these checks. You can use those leaves that you have purchased from Dynamic Solutions. All right. So yes, you can preview this. If you need to make any changes to this layout and or add more things, reduce more things, you can go to the templates part where you have the check. I'll just show it to you in a bit, and you can print it. All right. You'll have the option to show it and save. Okay, I can save a copy of it here. Yeah. Okay. And yes, and the check number will also get populated here. Once you've made the print, and you can click on OK. Okay, so the bill will go to the paid option, to the paid status. Next, you can click on the payments, and it will be in the uncleared status. So only when a check is matched with the payment in your bank account then it will go to cleared status. So let's go to the banking. All right. So the payment was made through PNC, and there will be a pertaining, yeah. So as you can see, the relevant payment is this. So I'll just click on select. Okay. But there is a discrepancy with the amount, which is the 140. If there's any discrepancy, usually it will be the same amount, but because because I had created it for 4,140, there's a discrepancy. I can create a new transaction for that 140 alone and put it as a shipping charge, and or it could also be a withdrawal that goes from your account, and you can click on save. All right. So that will completely balance out the amount, and you can click on match. Oh, sorry, just a minute. Oh yes. So since it's a check, so usually if it should be $4,000. Let me just, yeah. When it will be $4,000. In that case, you'll be able to click on this, and the pending will be 0, and you'll be able to click on match. All right. So once that's done, the check will go to the cleared status. Okay. So payments made, the uncleared checks, this will go to the paid status. Okay. So another thing is, while recording the payment, you will also have the option to print the check later. All right. So you've entered all these details, save and print later. Okay. So once you're ready to make the check and everything, you can go to payments made. You can click on to be printed checks, and you will have it here, and you can go ahead and do the process of printing. So yeah, so this is one of the options to record payment. Yes. So the next option is to pay through ACH. All right. So you can click on this, and it'll give you the option to pay via ACH. Currently, this is again available only for the US and Canadian editions, where you can integrate online payment gateways such as Forte and Authorized.net that currently support ACH, apart from other payment gateways. So yes, you can set that up. I'm sorry, for the bill payment, it is vendor payment, which is only Forte. So you can set that up where you'll have the option to set up bank account. Only when you choose this bank account as the option, it will get populated as an option to record the payment. All right. So you can set up the Forte integration and go ahead with paying through ACH. All right. So yes, so that's with creating the bill. So far what we've done is we've created the sales order. We've created the sales order. Since there was no, the stock was less, we've created a purchase transaction for the same stock. So if you go to that particular item now, all right, you'll be able to see that the stock is increased because we've purchased so much. Over here, you'll be able to see all of the details over here that you've purchased recently for you've purchased 40 quantity. All right, now you can go back to the sales order. Now that you have enough quantity, you can go ahead and click on convert to invoice. So once the sale is complete, that's when you create an invoice. When you create an invoice, when the invoice is in the open or sent status, only then the accounting will get affected. All right. So yes, while creating an invoice, over here you can see the invoice number. The customer will get auto-populated from the sales order information. The invoice number, this is something that you can set up. Either you can add it manually each time if you have like a different serial number on customers, or else you can set up a static prefix and a generating number. All right. And yes, and then the order number again will get populated, from the estimate number that goes to the sales order, and that comes here. And then the invoice date, which is again the date that the sale is complete. And you also have the option to add salespersons. So they don't necessarily have to be users in your organization. However, you can add them and give them the email address. All right, you can do that and choose them as well. This is basically so that we have reports where you can run sales based on sales report. Just give me a quick second. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. Also, I've been asked to talk slow. Okay, I'll go really slow. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, again, let's resume. Yeah, okay, just a minute. Yes, all right. I'll go really slow. I'm sorry about that. Again, so yes, the salesperson, so you can choose them, add them, all of that in the invoice page. Okay. This commission is just a custom field that I've added so that you can add it. You can have any number of custom fields over here. It has multi-purposes. Venkat will be talking about it in a while. And yes, you can choose the price list if you need, or if not, you don't have to. Okay. So yes, so the item details from the sales order will get auto-populated to your invoices, and that will be seen here. Another one thing that I had mentioned earlier is the billable expenses. So if you click on this, the expense that we had created earlier for that particular and associated the customer, that will also get populated here. You can choose that and add it over here. It will be added here and as rent and fuel expenses, and you can choose to charge them for it. All right. Additionally, you can have discounts for the customer. You can either have it as the amount or even as the percentage. All right. So you can add a percentage maybe here. Okay. And if you have shipping charges, you can add the shipping charges over here for the invoice. Let's say we give them shipping charges $100. Okay. So if you have any adjustments again, you can go ahead and add it here. And you have the customer notes. So this you can either add it for each invoice over here, or under the preferences for invoices, you'll have the option to set up default content for the customer notes. Also for the terms and conditions, it applies for both. You can maybe have default content for both and maybe edit it for each invoice. It completely depends on your preferences. Next thing is we also have the option to get the invoices paid directly, right? So you can set up payment gateways. Currently, we have a lot of payment gateways. Depending on each edition that you have, you will have the supported payment gateways. For instance, Stripe is there for almost all the editions, but then Authorize.net will not be available for Australia and the global edition. So based on that, in the integrations page, you will be able to see, depending on the edition that you have. So you can do that over here. All right. So you can set that up. So once you set it up, you can choose this as the payment option for the customer. All right. So let's say you had, or if you have Authorize.net as a payment gateway option, it will get populated here. You can select Authorize.net. And then once the customer gets the invoice, they'll be able to pay it online by clicking on a pay now option. This can be done even through the client portal. All right. So this is an additional option which makes it much easier for the customers to receive payments. Okay. For the customers to make the payment so that you receive it much easier. You don't have to toggle between multiple, websites to make a payment. So that's one thing. And another thing is we also have ACH payments for customer payments with Authorize.net and Forte. You just have to enable while setting up the integration. For instance, you'll just have to make sure you enable the bank account. Once that's done, you will have enabled the ACH payment for that particular payment gateway. Next, you can choose the email addresses under that particular customer to whom all this invoice has to be sent. So it can be for all of them or just one of them. So it can be up to you. You can also add more contact persons to that particular customer. All right. So you can go ahead and save it as draft just to if you want to check it with anyone. You also have the option to enable the approvals, which Venkat had spoken about. In that case, over here, you will have the option to save and approve or save and submit. Once it's submitted, the approver will have the option to approve the expense and then approve the invoice, and then you can go ahead and send the invoice. All right. So I'll go directly to save and send. Okay. Yes. This will be the body of the invoice. Again, it will be under templates. All right. So the invoice is sent. Once it is sent, only once the invoice is in the sent status, it will get affected in your accounts. So if the invoice is in the draft status, and if you go and look at the reports for if it's getting reflected, it won't. Only if it is in the sent status, it will get reflected. Likewise, when you're creating a bill, and if it's in the draft status, it won't get affected. Only once it's sent, or if it's in the open status, it will get affected. Another quick thing before we go ahead, the accounts will get affected, as in like your profit and loss and major accounting reports will get affected only with your invoices, bills, and expense transactions. If you have a sales order, purchase order, or a estimate, those transactions will not get affected in your accounting. All right. So yes, to move forward, we have the invoice. The invoice PDF will look as such. You can change it again with the templates. So yes, now the next thing is recording a payment, right? So either you can record an offline payment, or if the customer has made the online payment, this invoice will get the status of it will get automatically changed to paid, and the payment will also get recorded. But other than that, the only other option is to record a payment. Okay. And to whichever account. Okay. Another flexibility is, let's say the customer's paid only an initial amount. Okay. Only half an amount. So you can just enter how much ever they've made the payment for, and you can click on record payment. The status of the invoice will be partially paid. All right. So, which means that they're still due $2,000. Also, another thing is you had created a retainer payment for them. So you can, as you can see over here, retainers available is the $1,000. You can click on apply now. You can choose how much ever you want to add it to this particular sale. You can use this retainer amount for other sales, other invoices that you create for the same customer, or you can use the entire amount here. Okay, you can apply the retainer, which will once again calculate the balance for you. Okay, just a minute. Okay, hold on a second. I think I might have to do a refresh for it to completely show up. Sorry about that. This and yeah, this one. Yeah, so it's calculated. So all the charges have been, all the credits have been applied to it, and there's a balance amount. So whenever the customer makes the payment to you, you can go ahead and record the payment. If you want to write off the invoice at this stage, you can go ahead and do that as well. It will fall under the bad debt account. All right. So this is the basis of the entire cycle where a sale, when you create an estimate to a sales order to an invoice, in between from a sales order to a purchase order and the bill. So both your sales and purchases will get covered with this. All right. So other modules within the sales tab will be your recurring invoices. Basically, you can set up a recurring profile. So let's say you purchase a particular item or a service rather on regular intervals. All right. So you can choose the customer with whom you sell the service or item, whichever. So you can choose the item. Okay. Let's say the deluxe plan. So one of the good examples for a recurring invoice would be, let's say you purchase your Zoho Books application. So that's a monthly payment of, let's say, $29. So you can set it up as a recurring invoice so that you don't necessarily have to create the invoice every single month. So it will get automatically created. You'll have the option to set up the preference. Okay, so the preference would be either create the invoice as a draft, or you can create the invoice and send the invoice, which that can also be done if the customer is applicable to that. Or you can create, charge, and send invoices. So you can do that. I'm sorry, Zoho Books is not a good example here. Let's say something that you sell, like a service, like installation services or something like that. You can create, charge, and send invoices. So depending on your preferences, you can create this recurring invoice and save it. All right. So yeah, let me just go ahead, and if you need to make any changes to the profile, you can do that. If it's not that good. Okay. A profile name and the repeat every. So this will be the regular interval. So let's say this happens every 2 months and on a specific date. Let's say it happens the second of every 2 months. All right. And the due date, again, you can set this up for the customer. It can be next 15, whatever you need. And if a salesperson is involved, you can go ahead and associate them as well. And yes, same thing, customer notes, terms and conditions, and you can click on save. All right. So every second, so for April 2nd, it won't get created because it's a prior date from today. So within the next 2 months, so it will be June 2nd, the next invoice date, which is shown here, it will get created then. All right. So if you want to change any of these preferences, you can go ahead and edit and change. The change will be applicable only for the next generating invoice. Okay. So yes. So once that invoice is created, it will be in the sent status. You can go ahead and record the payment once the customer makes the payment. So this is one additional feature for the sales modules. Another thing is credit note. Why do we create a credit note? Is, let's say you sell, let's take the invoice that we just created. All right. In this, let's say the computer monitor, the customer wants to return a few because probably it's damaged or it's not something that they needed. So what you can do is you can click on this three-dotted icon, click on create credit note. Okay. So the quantity that they're going to replace. Okay. The cables, they didn't have a problem, so we'll just remove that. It's just with the computer monitor. So yeah, you'll just have to change the quantity as to how many they are returning. All right. So you can put 5 as the quantity and just go about checking with the other details that you need and click on save. All right. So the credit note will get applied to the invoice directly and the item will get returned. So your items, again, it will have an impact on your items because it's been returned. Okay. So yeah, under transactions, you will be able to see that 5 items were returned. All right. Another way is you can create a credit note for the customer directly. So let's say I can the same customer and you can choose an item and create the credit note. So this will be in the open status. So once you have an invoice for once you create another sale for them, you can apply it to an open invoice. All right. So for instance, the amount balance that you have for this credit note is $15. You can apply to any of these open invoices. Okay. So let me just go ahead and put this amount for this so that you can see. Okay. So it's been applied and it will be in the closed status. You can go to this and see which invoice was credited. And yeah, you'll be taken to that through the bars that we have. And yeah. Okay. So this is the credit note option that you have. And moving on with the purchases, again, purchases has the recurring profiles for both your recurring expenses as well as your recurring bills. Likewise, you can create the recurring expenses as to how it has to be recorded. All right. We don't have a preference for this because expense, again, is something that's incurred and it's not something that you have to send it to anyone. So you can just go ahead and create it. The main thing will be the interval in which the expense has to be created. continuing will be your recurring bills. Same thing. You will just have to create the profile as to what you'll be purchasing within a regular interval. All right. Next will be the final thing with your purchases will be the vendor credits. Like how you have credits for your customers, you might have credits with your vendor as well, something that they are liable to you. Either they can refund it to you or you can apply it to your next purchase. So you can go ahead and create the vendor credit. Okay, you don't have to associate an item as such. You can just put it as service, the rate associated with it, credit note number. You can have can be set up as well and save as open. Oh, the account. Sorry. Here, and save as open. Could be cost of goods sold as well, whichever. And yeah, that will be done. Once it's in the open status, again, like all the transactions, you'll be able to see the journal report for it. All right. And once you create you can apply it to bills, whichever bill is open. Again, you'll be able to see over here, the bill balance is only 56. So if I apply 56, okay, this will be partially spent. So you still have a $44 credit pending with your vendor. Another option is you can also refund these credits. So based in Zoho Books, you're just recording all the refunds and application of the credits. But in reality, you will have to do it with your bank and through cash. So here you will record if it's a refund. So you're getting the $44 refunded. So you can do that. And the vendor credit will be closed. Likewise, for the sale, which I forgot to mention, you'll do the same thing. Once there's an open credit note, you can click on refund and go ahead and refund it to your customer. Okay. So yes, your everyday transactions. Let me just check if I have gone through everything that we had to deal with the everyday transactions. Just a second. Okay. Take a little bit of. Yep, I think that's about it with your everyday transaction. We will go for a short break. Just a minute, let me put you through with Venkat. Just give me a second. I'll just put him through.
Hey guys, Venkat here again. So as I said, we'll be taking a break, 30-minute break, and once we're back, we'll continue with, or Mahila will continue with um, time-based invoicing. And oh, can you hear me? I haven't enabled my cam just a moment. Let me go ahead and do that. But you confirm if you can hear me. Can you guys? Is it working fine now? Can you guys confirm if you can hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yep. So what I was saying is we're going to have a quick break now for 30 minutes. We'll be back after 30 minutes. And once we're back, we'll be taking a look at time-based invoicing, and then we'll have a look at the banking module. So please do join us after 30 minutes. And yeah, if you have any questions, please continue posting them in the, what is the schedule for the rest of the session? Okay, yeah. So once we're back from the break, as I was saying, first we'll cover time-based invoicing, then banking. Once banking is over, we'll, okay, how many hours? This should be done in another probably 3.5 hours or so. So that's the time we have, the next 4 hours, but we will be wrapping it up in another 3.5 hours or so. So we'll be covering, let me go back to the agenda. Break is 30 minutes. Let me go back to the agenda one more time. That'll give you more clarity. Um, just a second. So yeah, here's the agenda. And as I was saying, we'll be covering time-based invoicing, banking, importing data, the common errors, advanced transactions, reports, customizing Zoho Books, automation, and integration with other apps. So that's the agenda for the rest of the session. This will go on for another 3.5 to 4 hours, and the break is for 30 minutes. So you guys can join us back in 30 minutes. Thank you so much.